friends, welcome back to Liz's Reading Corner, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Liz and I like books, and this is the rapid fire book tag. I have coffee because it is first thing in the morning and we do not function here without coffee, and I have a list of 25 questions to answer. So I was tagged by the beautiful Sarah over at In My Granny Era. She's tagged me in a couple of things, and I always feel bad because I forget that on the community tab there is like a mentioned section, and I am really bad at checking that. So I only check it like maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months lately, because January was January. So I have not checked my tags for quite a while, and I realized that not only had Sarah tagged me in some things, but also other people had tagged me in some things, and now I feel bad, so I apologize if you have tagged me in something and you're watching this. I am getting back to those tags now that I'm aware that they exist and I've remembered that they exist. There's just been a lot going on. So yeah, like I said, Sarah from In My Granny Era tagged me in this. This tag was originally created by Girl Reading, but it seems that she is not on YouTube anymore. So I guess without any further ado, we will get into the questions. It's a series of 25 questions, and you meant to just answer them off the top of your head immediately with very little thought. So question 1, ebook or physical? I read both. I read ebooks quicker, but I also sometimes prefer physical books. It's very much dependent on my mood and how I'm feeling, and also what is available. So if I can get something as an ebook but I can't get it as a physical book, I'll just read the ebook. Question 2 is paperback or hardback. I again don't really, actually I do. I have a preference paperback, just because hardbacks, especially if they're bigger books, and I do tend to read bigger books sometimes, if they're a hardback, I don't know who did this, but hardbacks tend to be like really difficult to open. And if I am having a flare up and my hands are not working, it's just too difficult to read. So my preference is paperback if they're bigger books, especially if they're like floppy books. Oh, I've just a nice floppy book that will just like flop open. Amazing. But I don't hate hardback, if that makes sense. Question 3, online or in-store book shopping? I don't have a preference. Oh, actually, no, I do. I prefer bookstores just because I love the smell of them. I would probably work in like a bookstore or a library if I wasn't doing what I'm currently doing. And yeah, just the smell of books is amazing. So I'm one of those people that smells books. Not books that I'm not buying. I smell books that I buy, because it's weird to like put a book that you're not buying up to your face. It's just odd. Question 4, trilogies or series? I don't have a preference. It's very story based. So some stories I wish never ends. Some trilogies I wish were actually book series and continued on forever, and we just learned everything about the world. But there are some where it just makes sense for them to end. Some series actually, and some trilogies should be duologies, in my opinion. I think sometimes a third book can be too much. Question 5, heroes or villains? I would probably prefer villains, to be honest. That may be an unpopular opinion. I feel that heroes tend to have too much just handed to them. Everything's just too easy, I guess. And they remind me too much of like Mary Sue's, I think is the right term, where everything's just handed to them. Like if a character is a Mary Sue, I don't know what the male equivalent of that is, they can just do things automatically. They don't have to fight for them. They don't have to learn skills. They just happen to be able to do everything to get to where they need to go to win, basically. And that really irritates me. It feels like the cheats way of writing a story, and it's not for me. Question 6, a book you want everyone to read. I have, way off topic for a second, I crochet, and I have actually been making book sleeves for my books. And I just finished making this one, and I'm super proud of it. A Queen's Glory by Christy M. Harris. This book, I got it for Christmas, and it has given me the biggest book hangover I have ever experienced. This is phenomenal. This is epic fantasy. It's book 1 in a trilogy. I think it's going to be a trilogy. And it has everything. It has witches, it has mermaids, it has sirens, it has fae, also has humans. And so all of these people live together in this world. They sort of just keep to like they're each in their own separate areas. They don't really tend to mingle a lot. And witches, much like in real life, witches are feared. They're not someone that you really associate with like out in the open. So if you're going to see a witch, you tend to just like run into the forest and see the witch at a certain time because it's safer at that time, and then just do what you're doing and get out before nightfall. And so there is this witch queen who she's an all-powerful witch. She is also very ruthless, and she has plans to take over the rest of the world. So there's also gods. So the gods in this book have not really been involved in the world for a while. They've just kind of been like sat back and just seeing how it goes and how the species all interact with each other. I don't like using the word species, but like how they and there is this one god who's a god of protection, and every like I think it's 70 years or so, he would, or no, every so often he would have someone who was like his champion, and he had always chosen like a fae to be his champion. And then he realizes, or he kind of sees that what the witch queen is up to, and he decides to take on a human champion. And this human is someone who is like an urchin, like they are an orphan, they live on the streets, they're very like, I don't think he's a child, he's 18, isn't he? Yeah, he's 18, so he's very much just like a street rat. And so this 18-year-old's name is Reed, and he has to sort of like come to terms with the fact that there is like this god living in his head, and that he is now the god's champion, and he has to help all of the other fae fight against the witch queen to save their world. Yeah, I just wish everyone would read this. It is, even though it's like a short book for an epic fantasy, it's only like 310 or so pages. It is very detailed and very immersive, and the world building is amazing. The world building is amazing. The characters are so well written. I'm going to be reading this again very soon for one of my reading prompts, and even though I only read it like just over a month ago, I wish I could read it like every month. I loved it so much. So if you love epic fantasy, if you love like Brandon Sanderson or Robert Jordan or who else is there, yeah, just like anyone, I can't even think of any other fantasy authors. That's really bad. Raymond Feist, like fantasy, epic fantasy, read this book. You need to read this book. It is so good. That was a very long waffle. I apologize, but I love that book so much. Question 7, recommend an underrated book. I just finished reading Pay the Piper by Daniel Kraus and George A. Romero. This was amazing. This is a horror book. It is set in the bayou in sometime in the 1900s, mid 1900s, something like that. And it follows this girl who was born in the bayou, like we're talking deep south in the swamp, and she it just follows like how like her community, which is a very poor community, just lives in not very great conditions, and also their superstitions, because they're a very superstitious town. Everyone lives in shanties, or like, yeah, pirate shanties, I think they call them. They all believe that they descend from pirates. Most of the adults are alcoholics, and none of them are very educated. I don't want to say they're not educated, because like they went to school, but circumstances were not great for them, and so most of the adults don't work, and most of the town lives in like squalor, for lack of a better term. And it's basically a Pied Piper retelling, because that's exactly what it is. And so what they're saying is with these people, these town people, I don't know how else it's not really even a town because they're literally just like random shanties that are in the swamp. But the townspeople are descended from pirates, and the piper is from the sea, so he's like this being from the sea, and he is trying to get them to pay for the sins of their ancestors. So their ancestors, the pirates, brought slaves over. So apparently pirates, I don't know if this is like true, I haven't looked into it or researched it, but apparently pirates, and it wouldn't surprise me actually, were some of the biggest slave traders at the time of slavery, and they lost a lot of people in either ships that sank or people just died coming over. So slaves died from coming over from Africa, and they were just thrown overboard. And so the piper, being this entity from the sea, is has lived for hundreds of years listening to their souls crying out for revenge or for justice. And so he is coming back to end the bloodlines of the pirates who were involved in the slave trade. I haven't seen very many people talk about it, and it was amazing. I literally couldn't read that book fast enough. I got it from the library, and I kind of wish I'd bought it because I just want to read it again. It was so good. So highly recommend Pay the Piper by Daniel Kraus and George A. Romero. Next is the last book that you finished, and I'm gonna have to check Goodreads for this one because I don't remember the last book was that I finished, because I've started like 4 different books in the last week and I haven't finished a single one of them, so bear with me. So the last book that I finished was We Kept Her in the Cellar by W.R. Gorman. This is a Cinderella retelling, but it is told from the perspective of the stepsisters, and it has a very big twist. So this is very much a horror book. Maybe check trigger warnings just in case. But yeah, so it's told from the perspective of the evil stepsisters in the traditional story, but they're actually not evil. In this story, they were just trying to do what was best for not Cinderella, but everyone else in the town and the world, or in the country that they live in. And Cinderella is actually not a nice person, so she's not even human. Yeah, Cinderella is not human. She's actually an eldritch, and she has these powers that are not very good. And so the book is mainly told from is only told from the perspective of Eunice, which is the eldest of the 2 stepsisters. And yeah, basically Eunice just has to like live her life caring for Cinderella and sort of making sure that she's kept in line. And then something happens, and then just before the ball, and Cinderella escapes. And I'm not going any further because the rest will be spoilers. But it was actually really quite good. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't what I expected from Cinderella, and I actually really liked it. Like, I'm kind of on the fence about retelling. Some authors do them really well, but I think, yeah, it's very much based on the author's writing, but this was actually a really good retelling. Question 9, the last book that you bought. I bought a few books. So we bought all of the Artemis Fowl series, and we bought our son a book. Our son is into David Shannon, and we got him No David, which I don't know where he found it, but he absolutely adores it. And we also got King of Stars by Leigh Bardugo. So we literally bought them all at the same time, which is why there's not just one. Question 10, the weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark. I couldn't tell you. I use all sorts of things as bookmarks. I use receipts, I use like napkins, I have used those, I don't know if this is an Australia or anything, or if this is like a world thing, but KFC has like packets where you get like a fork and a spoon and like a sanitary napkin, like a hand wash thing, and a paper napkin, and it's in one of these. It's got like a fork and a spoon and a napkin and everything, and I've used those because they're like the right size for a bookmark and they're not thick. So but yeah, I've used lots of different things. I don't know really what the weirdest thing is. I use like scraps of wool sometimes if I don't have anything else. Just whatever is at hand. Nothing that's going to damage the book or mark the book, because that would be bad. But yeah, off the top of my head, there's nothing really weird or crazy. Not anything I consider weird or crazy that I've used as a bookmark. Question 11, used books, yes or no? Yes, I buy secondhand books. I have no issues buying secondhand books. I think that it's a good way to be able to read books, especially if you don't have a library. So if you don't have a library around and you can get secondhand books and you can't afford brand new books, or you don't want to buy brand new books for whatever reason, I don't see any problem with buying secondhand books. Question 12, top 3 favorite genres. So that's actually pretty easy. That would be fantasy, horror, and thriller. Yeah, fantasy, horror, and thriller. They're the 3 main genres that I read anyway. Yeah. Question 13, borrow or buy. Like I said, I am an advocate for the library. I have like an entire shelf of library books here. I prefer borrowing right now because I just don't have room. Like, this is the only bookshelf that I've got because we just don't have room for more bookshelves right now, without rearranging everything completely, and I just don't have the energy for that all the time. And we're saving up to buy a house, so when books are like $25 each, it's just not worth buying. Unless we find things. So like I said, we bought like the entire Artemis Fowl series. That was $20 for the entire series because the cover, so it said on the thing that the covers were damaged, but it was actually the slip cover that they come in, and it's like what, 8 books? 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 8 books. So it's 8 books for $20. My husband was like, you need to get that. The Lee Bardugo book that we just got was that has a damaged cover, I think. There's like a tiny little bit of damage on the cover here. Like, you can barely even tell. And so that was like $4 or something, or $5. And then we got our son a book. It was, maybe it was like $8, $10. I don't know, it was like $36. $36 for 8 books, 9, 10 books. $36 for 10 books. But yeah, long-winded way of saying either or, I don't really care. Preference is library right now because I just don't have the room. Question 14, character or plot? So, that one's a bit of a difficult one because both of those things will make me DNF a book, or either of those things will make me DNF a book. So if I don't like the characters, I'm not going to read the book, and if I don't like the plot, I'm not going to read the book. So both of them are very important. And like, you can have good characters, but if the plot's terrible, I'm not going to read it. But then if you have bad characters and I'm interested in the plot, I'm probably more likely to read through it if the plot is good over the characters. So probably I would say maybe plot is more important, but if both of those things are bad, the book's no good. Question 15, long or short books? I don't have a preference. I will read both. I think for the most part I read longer books, but that's just because I read fantasy, and fantasy tends to be long. Thriller and horror is anywhere, so horror is anywhere from, like, I think the shortest book I found is 40 pages, and that is Stephen King's son. Can't remember his name, but Stephen King's son wrote a book called Pram, I think it is, and it is only like 44 pages. So anywhere from 44 pages up to, again, Stephen King is like, the longest book of his I've read is like 11 or 1200 pages. So both. Question 16, long or short chapters? So again, very dependent on the book. If I'm enjoying the book, I don't mind how long the chapters are. If I'm kind of on the fence, shorter chapters will make me more inclined to read the book. But then again, if I'm not enjoying the book, it doesn't matter how long the chapters are, I'm just not going to read it. Question 17, name the first 3 books you think of. So Red Queen by, God, what's her name? Victoria Aveyard? I don't know how to pronounce her last name, I'm sorry. Queen's Glory by Christy M. Harris, and I don't know, the Tamara series by Naomi Novik. Actually, yeah, Tamara series. Tamara? I think the first book's Tamara by Naomi Novik. I didn't do very good at that one, did I? Question 18, books that made you laugh or cry. I don't think I've ever actually had a book that made me laugh. And very few books make me cry. I think when I was younger, I read a Bryce Courtney book, Jessica. Jessica was quite sad. I don't know if I cried in that though. I definitely cried. So I definitely cried in the Harry Potter books. I cried when Cedric Diggory died. I cried when Dumbledore died. And I cried when Dobby died. But I cried the most when Dumbledore died because he was my favorite. Question 19, our world or fictional worlds? Either or. I think I prefer fictional worlds though. It's very much dependent on the genre. So if I'm reading like sci-fi, I don't mind if it's set in our world. And if I'm reading like history, because I do read historical fiction, I don't mind if it's set in our world. But I think for the most part, I preference fantasy worlds over our world. Question 20, audiobooks, yes or no? No, I can't do audiobooks. Audiobooks make me cringe. I have the same issue with movies. So if I find something embarrassing, I cringe so hard and I have to stop. So audiobooks make me cringe, especially when you have like one, are they called narrators? I don't know. One person who's doing like the reading, and they do like different voices for different people, and I understand why they have to do different voices for different people, but dear God, does it make me cringe? I can't handle that. So no. Question 21, do you ever judge a book by its cover? Yes, that's why I bought Fathom Folk just there. I used to actually so before the library changed how they do reservations, you used to actually have to pay $2 per reservation. And so I would just like walk around the library and pick books that I thought were interesting. Now I just reserve them based on whether I want to read them or not. Sometimes I still walk around the library and just see if there's anything interesting as well. Same with the bookshop. Question 22, a book to movie or a book to TV adaptations? I don't really know that I've watched a lot of book to TV adaptations. We watched Game of Thrones for a while there. We watched The Witcher. I started watching the Wheel of Time series, but I couldn't handle that because I can't even get the characters right, even though there is descriptions, very vivid descriptions of the characters and an actual pronunciation guide on how to pronounce names, but let's ignore all of that in the book. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't really watched any other book to TV adaptations, so I guess book to movies. I still get frustrated even with movies though when things are wrong. So like the Harry Potter series, obviously there's huge plot points that I missed in that. The Hannibal Lecter series actually is pretty good. That was surprising. The Bone Collector was pretty accurate from memory. So probably book to movies, but I don't know. They tend to just not get it right anyway, which is frustrating. Question 23, movie or TV adaptation that you preferred more than the book? I don't think there's any that I prefer more than the book. Like I just said, the Hannibal Lecter series actually did really well with the movie adaptations, and I'd like to finish reading the books because I've got 2 more books in the series that I haven't read yet. So they were pretty good, but I don't think I have anything that I prefer more than the book, at least not anything that I found yet. Second last one, question 24, series or standalones? I don't have a preference. It's very much just whatever I enjoy reading, because I'll DNF a book if I don't enjoy it, or a series if I don't enjoy it, because we don't have time to be reading things that we don't enjoy. But yeah, I don't have a preference for either of them. Quite honestly, I read both. Sometimes I feel like just reading standalones, and sometimes I need a series. So yeah, I'll always read a mixture of both. And question 25 is tag others. I don't ever really specifically tag like specific people in these. So if you have seen this and you would like to do this, I tag you. So yeah, that is the rapid fire book tag done and dusted. Thank you, Sarah, so much for tagging me. What are your answers to these questions? I'm always curious as to how other people would answer these questions. If you have any books that you think I would enjoy, please let me know. If you have any more tags that you think I should do, please let me know in the comments down below. If you like what I do here, please like, share, and subscribe. All of those things help this channel. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.